Welcome back to Song of Solomon, episode number 23. We are in chapter 7 and we have so far studied up to verse 4. And today I'm going to start with verse 5. Let's go all the way down to verse 9, where still the bridegroom is describing his bride. Hey, are you enjoying this? Well, if you're joining us now, you got to stop this, go back to episode 1, and then come all the way from there. If not, you will not understand what's transpiring here. Okay, let's read verse 5 of chapter 7 in the book of Song of Solomon. And again, I would like to remind you that I'm using the very poetical, very wonderful, very Shakespearean version of the Bible, the King James Version. Okay? Now, here is what he's saying pertaining to his bride in verse 5. Thine head upon thee is like Carmel, and the hair of thine head like purple. The king is held in the galleries. I like when the Lord uses abstract expressions. Now, here in this verse, quite ironically, he is describing himself on the pretext of describing the bride. Let me get it clear to you. He is saying, thine head. Now, who is he talking to? The church. Who is the head of the church? Jesus himself. Now, who is talking? Jesus. So, if Jesus is addressing the church, indicating, hey, you are head, then he is referring to his own self. Correct? Okay, so thine head upon thee is like Carmel. Carmel, now those of you who are in Israel, you know the beautiful mountain range of Carmel. All the way from Haifa to the edge of the Jezreel Valley. I love that place. And you know, many of my teachings, many of my songs were all recorded there because of the terrain, the beauty, the serenity, the tranquility. That's interesting. It's wonderful, isn't it? And if you haven't been to Israel, if you haven't been to Mount Carmel, let me tell you, that is one of the most beautiful mountain ranges in Israel. Okay, Carmel is just not a hill, not a mountain, but it is a range of mountains. Now, if you get onto that mountain, say on the western side of it, where the Stella Maris, the Baha'i Garden, all those places are from where the cable car could take you down to the Haifa city center, the beautiful scenery of the Mediterranean Sea and all that. Oh, that's so wonderful. And then from there, you can travel by car to the other side of the mountain range, almost to the Jezreel Valley. And it takes about 40-45 minutes for me to drive. And you know what? When I drive in Israel, I drive decent. Not like the way I drive in Sri Lanka. So my decent driving takes me to the other side, say in about 40 minutes. And during that drive, wow, you would go through that Haifa University and the beautiful woods, the pines, the cedars, and wonderful. So what I would like to say about Mount Carmel is that it's so beautiful, it's tranquil, it's serene, lovely, and very fertile. You know, we say, hey, you can grow nails there. What about the Baha'i Gardens? Have you seen it, either from down below or from up there? Well, you know, don't worry if the Baha'i faith is not Christian, if the Baha'i garden belongs to somebody who is not Christian. Now, let's leave that aside. When you look at that garden, boy, the beauty of those flowers, the beauty of those greenery, amazing. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that the soil there is so fertile. I think in 2016, September, I was traveling to Haifa when all of a sudden a huge forest fire started, okay, bush fire. And we could not go to Haifa. And if you remember, you would know that some guy, played the fool. He torched it up and it was so dry. Obviously, Israel during summer is very dry. And it torched the whole Mount Carmel. Yeah, all those burnt down to ashes. And in November, when I went there, just within 2 months, there was no evidence of a bushfire just a couple of months ago. Why? Israel replanted trees, they cleared everything up, they replanted, and they started to grow to the extent where you would find no trace of a bushfire. Now that tells me that you can grow nails on that soil. So that is a very fertile, healthy, wonderful, peaceful and tranquil mountain range. Now Jesus, in a very poetical manner, around 1,000 years before he came, uses King Solomon to prophesy about himself by way of describing the church that was to come. So he says, thine head upon thee is like Carmel, which means Jesus is like Mount Carmel. So he should be a fertile ground. He should be beautiful. He should be high and aloof. He should be everything Mount Carmel is. Does that make sense to you? Poetry is descriptive of something real. So Jesus is that. And Jesus, our head, is so wonderful, great. Now what about 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 38? The fire fell and burnt up the sacrifice of Elijah. You remember that? Now that was a confrontation between a single prophet of God and 450 prophets of Baal or Baal. Who won? Elijah won. So Mount Carmel also shows that the satanic forces, evil forces, forces of idolatry, forces of false prophecy, were all defeated in one jiffy. Ooh. So that's power, that's anointing, that's fire, that's God's victory. That happened to Jesus. Jesus also was crucified. And the devil thought he won. Okay, full stop, finito, kaput. Jesus died, crucified. But what happened? On the third day, he rose again. So today we worship not a dead God. Yes, his grave is there, but it's empty. We go in and see the empty grave and then we alight. Okay, why? Because he who was kept in there rose again from the dead. So that's what this verse describes. The bridegroom himself, looking at the bride, says, hey girl, your head is like Carmel. Meaning himself. Okay, interesting, isn't it? And the hair of thine head like purple. Now, what is purple? Figuratively, metaphorically. Purple is majestic. So you, girl, by becoming my bride, have become royalty. So look at your hair now. Oh, it's purple. Today we are in a culture where both men and women, they color their hair to the taste they like. Different diverse colors are abounding. And sometimes I can't help myself laughing inside of me for the colors that they choose. But in those days, where hair dyeing was not prominent, it was not even known, purple was used. Purple, hey, you remember in the book of Acts, a girl called Lydia, a seller of purple, she was from Thyatira. Okay, anyway, let's not go into those verses. I'm just trying to, remind you. So this purple seller, Lydia from Thyatira, she was with the people who got saved during the ministry of Paul. So the purple was sold to royalty when they colored their, especially the women, queens and princesses, when they colored their head with purple. When you look at them, you know, okay, this is royalty. So Jesus is saying, I look at your head, honey, And that's me. I'm like Mount Carmel. Ooh, all that majesty, beauty, fertility, lovely, everything. But also I look at your hair. You are no longer a common girl, baby. You are royalty. Hey, isn't that wonderful? We who were dead in sins. I have told you umpteen times, I was a Hindu priest. What was I? A good for nothing idiot. My mother used to call me Buffalo. Okay? And some people call me Buffalo even now, but then my mother meant it when she said, and what happened? God changed me. He cleansed me. He gave me a new life, and I became royalty. I am the bride of Christ, the King of Kings. So that's the hair. Okay? Now it says the king is held in the galleries. What does that mean? In these royal palaces and mansions, you get galleries. When say, the king comes out of his room and makes his way to the court of his palace, the throne room, he would come accompanied by his ministers, his guards and whatnot. And then when he walks in that majesty, he pauses for nothing. He does not pause. Why? You can't stop a king, can you? He is king. Hey, so when he is walking in the gallery, nothing and no one can stop him. Lo and behold, here he says, darling, when I am in that gallery, I am stunned by your beauty. Just by looking at your head and your hair, I stop. So the king is held in the galleries. I'm like, shocked to smithereens. Now this is the expression Jesus gets when he looks at us, the church. No, I know what you're thinking. Well, the church today is not stunning that way. Of course, the church is stunning in a negative sense. If Jesus is walking along the gallery and then he sees the church and he's like, is this my girl? Is this the person for who I came and died? In a negative expression. But here it's the other way around. So my dear friends, don't look at the negativities of the church. Of course, we have been there for 2,000 years and look at the schisms, problems, and doctrinal differences, practical differences, cultural differences, all the paraphernalia that have been transpiring throughout the 20 centuries. Let's not get into those. The real church which loves Jesus crazy, the real church that lives according to the word of our Master is still beautiful and stunning in a positive sense. So our Master stops and then he marvels at us. Verse 6, how fair and how pleasant art thou, O love, for delights. Fair. Fairness resembles white, which represents two things, holiness and righteousness. Holiness, by definition, means to be separated from the world and separated unto God. Righteousness, by definition, means that you have a right relationship with God, and as a byproduct, a right relationship with man. So when Jesus looks at the church, he says, I see you are fair, you are holy, you are segregated, you are not amalgamated in sins, you are pure, you are clean, and then you are righteous. Your relationship with me is wonderful. It's not religious. The interesting thing that we Christians, most of our Christians have missed is that they have made relationship a religion. Christianity is not a religion, it's a relationship. So Jesus says your fairness, your whiteness, your purity, your righteousness is amazing. So let's pursue those things. Okay? How fair and how pleasant art thou. Pleasant. You are pleasing. Your words are pleasant, your attire pleasant, your attitudes pleasant, your actions pleasant, your everything of you is so pleasant. And without complaining about the other people's unpleasantness and other people's unholiness, let us concentrate on ourselves and see, wow, Jesus is looking at me. Personalize it. He is talking about me. So may I cultivate these attributes all the more to please him. Okay? Verse 7. This thy stature is like to a palm tree, and thy breasts to clusters of grapes. Well, palm tree. Now, I haven't done an English teaching about the palm tree, but I have done several teachings in my other languages like Sinhala and Tamil about several trees. But hey, I will do that, okay, for you. Now that we have talked about it, I must. I will, in the near future, teach you the olive tree, the palm tree, the cedar tree, the vines and all that, okay? So let's have fun learning about agriculture, okay? But let me draw something important to you here. Palm. Do you remember the verse in the book of Psalms which says that the righteous flourishes like palm? Also, do you remember that one of the judges, the only female judge we ever had, Deborah, sat under a palm tree when she was judging Israel? Remember? So, palm tree talks about something. Aha. Now, what is that? Metaphorically, or symbolically rather, palm denotes righteousness. A palm grows vertically. So righteousness, that your relationship with God in the vertical sense is perfect. So the higher you go, the closer you are to God. Hey, this is not like Jack and the Beanstalk, okay? This is not literal, figurative and symbolic. So the more you grow closer to God, the more you grow in the Word, and the more righteous you become. So when you become more righteous, you become less of you and more of God. So you stop worrying about yourself, what people think about you, what people, how you need to portray yourself to people, how you need to use choicy words, and being diplomatic to people, not to offend them. But rather, you would be so God conscious that you'd be so full of God, you don't give a damn about what's happening in the world, who thinks about you what, but you are just, with God. And that's a lovely, lovely, lovely life. And that's what the palm tree describes. So the bridegroom says, thy stature is like to a palm tree. You're like a palm tree. You are so full of righteousness. And thy breasts to clusters of grapes. Time and again. Now this is the 23rd episode. Starting from the first episode, I have been saying this is not a sexual book. Although it is apparent that sexual connotations are embedded herein, they are not sexual. Okay? They are spiritual. But the spirituality is expressed through the sexual synonyms. Okay? Right. So it's talking about the girl's breasts here. And if you can recall, I explained that the breasts of a woman in the context of Song of Solomon talks about faith and love. And I drew the deduction from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. So the bridegroom says, and thy breasts, what? Faith and love. Your faith towards me and your faithfulness. Remember, faith has two components. Having faith in God and being faithful to Him. The Greek word pistis, remember? Okay. And the other one is love. And I have told you that there are at least 4 different loves, right? Agape, phileo, eros and storge. And God is talking about agape love, the unconditional love. So that's what ahava is what's used here in Hebrew. So the meaning rather, okay, the word agape in Hebrew is ahava, that's what I meant. So here, thy breasts to clusters of grapes. Ooh, grapes. I remember, perhaps you saw this on my Facebook, when I go to Mount Samaria, Habracha, where they harvest grapes, and I was also harvesting with them. And I'll tell you, I enjoyed to the brim. Oh, the taste of that. Perhaps some of you may be watching this program who may have come with me to Habracha in Samaria in Israel. Okay, we really did have fun. We ate those grapes, and so it's not just like any other vineyard. Israeli vineyards are, amazing. Okay, and it's very pleasant to see, very tasty to eat, and the wine thereof is wonderful, isn't it? So grape produces wine, which is a symbol of happiness in the Bible. So your faith and your love give me happiness, says the bridegroom. Okay, now the continuation is found in verse 8. He says, I will go up to the palm tree. I will go to my bride and I will be with her. I would enjoy her height. Okay, I would enjoy her height in me. I will take hold of her bough thereof. Now also thy breasts shall be clusters of the vine, and the smell of thy nose like apples. Remember I told you about the nose, facing Damascus. Solomon built that huge fortress in Lebanon, remember? So nose smells danger. Okay, it takes oxygen into us. So the nose, it inhales oxygen, it exhales carbon dioxide, and then it smells danger in a metaphorical sense. All that you remember. So because I have taught this to you earlier, I'm not spending time. That's why I told you, if you're watching this for the first time, sorry, you need to go back and come, otherwise you are going to think, this fellow is fast, he's not explaining enough. Well, I have explained all that in the past. So let's have fun seeing what he's remembering again. Okay. Verse 9. And the roof of thy mouth, like the best wine for my beloved, that goeth down sweetly, causing the lips of those that are asleep to speak. Now here, the King James rendering suggests that this is the roof of the mouth, but the Hebrew word says it's actually the throat. One day I explained to you the importance of the neck, which connects the head with the body. Head Jesus, the body the church, and the connection, the neck, okay? Now inside of the neck, you get the throat. And the throat is where all our food passes, but then our voice comes from the throat. Although it comes out of our mouth, it originates in the throat. If you have phlegm in your throat, you are going to be coarse. Okay? Even if your mouth is perfect, if you have a problem in your throat, you can't talk. So here, Jesus is saying, your throat is like the best wine of my beloved. Now, he is connoting himself as my beloved. So it's an unseen quote and unquote, okay? Anyway, these are the words that come out of our mouth. What are our words that are coming out of our throat? Positive ones or negative ones? Are you a happy verbalizer or a moaner, grumbler? Hey, many Christians today grumble all the time. I don't have that well, How are you? Well, so. Well, everybody has problems. Now, if I start relating my problems to you, you will start to cry. And it's vice versa. Who does not have problems? But then we need to voice out joy and happiness all the time. Okay? So speak the positive. I'm not into this new age stuff, okay? all these stupid, positive confession stuff. What I am saying is we Christians need to put out words that are encouraging, that would make people laugh, people happy, And Jesus says, I enjoy what's coming out of your mouth, honey. And then he says that goeth down sweetly, causing the lips of those that are asleep to speak. This is again a poetical expression to talk about recuperation, rejuvenation. When you are so bleak and down, and when you are in the lowest ebb of disparity, the words can revive them, rejuvenate them. So when you speak, hey, you church, when you speak, even the melancholic heart should become joyful. So that's what Jesus says about the church. What you speak is so interesting, honey. I love to listen to this. Even the doors wakes up and stuff like that. Anyway, my time is up for today. So in my next segment, I will talk from verse 10 to 13. So whatever we learned within this little half an hour, I want you to just retrospect, watch this again if you forget, enjoy Christianity. See you.